All right, welcome in everyone. Welcome back to our second episode of Two Guys and a Bard. How is everyone doing today? Let's start with the usual question. What is everyone drinking today?
I'm going a little classic. It's a little hot here right now in California. So I've got the vodka tonic. We're going classic. We're going basic. I always knew that deep down inside, I was a 16-year-old girl.
Grumpy's drinking water. Fair enough, whatever you want to.
He's drinking chicken blood. I know it.
All
Chicken
right,
blood.
Super. What are you drinking today?
I got a good old margarita.
All right.
Nothing else to say there.
Yeah, and today I'm drinking a Manhattan, so a little bit of bourbon, some vermouth, bitters, a little bit of honey, and unfortunately, I don't have any cherries. So unfortunate. It's like the
Ooh,
best
Luxardo
part of a
Cherries?
Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
well.
my goodness.
Another time.
I got some. I'll send them over.
Have you gotten the big can of Luxardo Cherries?
yes.
They're like $90 a pop wholesale.
Yeah.
Those we used to order those in like the 4-pack. It's like this
Mhm.
just random $350 thing that just shows up at the restaurant. I loved it.
Yeah, and then you're putting on the huge glove and like scooping them into like individual servings. Like we use mason jars, so we're literally like pouring them into these mason jars, one handful at a time. Yeah, it's great. Just the bar life. But
The bar life, guys.
so yeah, we have a little bit of news today, right? We got was that today or yesterday that we got the new cosmetic pack?
We saw it yesterday. We all spent money today.
That's right. Yes. So let's go over let's get some opinions on that. And give me 1 second. I'll get it pulled up here for everyone to see.
Now, let me ask. I know what Bardic did. Super. Did you buy any of these cosmetics? Are you a cosmetic guy?
I am. I have yet to purchase any of these. There is one definite, one maybe, and the rest are kind of for me.
All right, let's guess, Bardic. Come on. If we're not going to guess at this, let's see really how well
Okay.
we know Super.
So you had one maybe, one yes, and one meh. Is that what you said?
One
is meh.
Yeah, one definite, one maybe, like one maybe leaning towards the no, and then the rest were no.
Okay.
All right.
Is this
okay, Bardic? What is your Super is definitely buying this? Which one is Super definitely buying?
I'm gonna go with the Mount. The moon chicken, as I like to coin it.
We're getting it in as the moon chicken, by the way, guys. We have Snorse. This is the second branded mount. It is called the moon chicken. All right. I'm going that Super's definite 100% is the shield. All right, Super. Let us know. What's your 100% definitely getting it?
The shield.
Okay.
Because when you can read people, you just know people.
No one ever said I was good at reading people. I'm good at a lot of things. Social skills are not my forte. Okay.
We're trying to get that in before the drinks like really take effect for the evening, because then we're gonna have no shot. We're gonna have no shot. All right. Bardic, what is his maybe leaning towards no?
All right. Me. Do that. Okay, so we have it up. As I said, sorry, it's a little janky. I meant to prepare that sooner and I forgot. The maybe. All right, I got to go with moon. No. I feel like Super doesn't like the moon. The maybe is the deer, just because of your Pokemon background. It's got to be the deer, right?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Now I'm second guessing. I was going to go maybe as the Mount.
The Mount is also kind of Pokemon-esque, right? But
it is. I'm going to go. So you're saying the maybe is the deer. I'm going to say the maybe is the Mount. I'm going to flip it on you. I'm going to say the maybe is the Mount.
Maybe is the Mount. Okay. I mean, I think it's 50-50 there. All right, Super, which is it?
The armor.
Really? You're not into any of these? You don't like the deer or the moon chicken?
The blade beak shit going on there is just, it's a little bit too much for me. It breaks it a little bit too much for me.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean,
So
but
one that I was considering before I looked into it a little bit more, the freehold. So right off the bat, the caravan was 100%
no, yeah, I'm
I
with you
looked
there.
at that. I looked at that. I'm like, Cinderella. No. Then I think the part that broke them out for me was I really liked the armor, but I can't imagine that armor on that mount. And so I felt like the shield and the armor went together and everything else did not. And it kind of broke it for me a little bit. I'm not a huge pet guy, which is funny that you guys bring up the Pokemon thing. I was all like, I didn't even consider that for myself. I was all like, oh yeah, that would make sense. But I have some like I have like the Ember Pup. I have like the Tiger Cub. Like, so like I have a couple of pets, but I'm not like a big like pet collector. So
that is really interesting actually because of the Pokemon thing. Here's a question. So these pets, I don't know if we've heard anything on it, but we know there's going to be combat pets in the game, right? So there's going to be pets. Basically, every class can have a combat pet, is what they've said, and that detracts from your overall score. So it's like I don't really understand the system. Not going to try to get too into it. Do you think these pets that are coming out in the cosmetic packs are going to be applicable to your combat pets?
All of these items are skins. They do not apply anything. So what that tells me is that there is going to be a little deerling pet, and then this is a skin you can put over it. The same with the fox, like, and then you can put the Firefox skin over it.
I mean, my understanding is you can apply any mount skin to any mount. What I'm asking is if the combat pets, can you apply any of these pet skins to the combat pet?
I would assume so. I don't see why not. Yeah.
Ooh, I mean, well, because there is a little bit of a misnomer there, right? Because I don't think you're allowed to do any mount skin to any mount, right? Like your gliding mount skins.
Well, yes.
The mount
so
skins they come in different tiers,
but you don't necessarily have to have a fox mount to apply the Firefox skin. It can be any mount.
You can get like a horse mount to apply the Firefox skin. It's a ground mount. I believe that's how they're doing it.
To my understanding, it has to be the same base creature.
I don't.
So if you
does.
I'll pull it up. I'll look.
Yes. All right, we're looking at it.
See if you can find this. I definitely want to get information for sure. Like I want to know for sure. But I mean, as much as I love the Snorse, the Moon Chicken is like my close second. It might be ahead of the Snorse. It's just the goofiest chicken ever, and it's like glowing a little bit, and I can just imagine it like running up to things and just be like,
It's like a blue chocobo, right?
Yeah.
It's a blue battle chocobo. I love it. I love everything about it.
What are they called actually in D&D? I forget the name. They're like axe beaks. Yeah, they're called axe beaks. And it's definitely 100% an axe beak. But yeah, as I said, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens overall with the pets, because I don't at the moment. Is it just a non-combat pet? Like, what is the point of these pet skins? Is it a combat pet or is it a non-combat that just kind of follows you around?
I mean, I think that's a good question, right? And there's definitely going to be kind of the meta with breeding pets and breeding mounts. I assume you can breed pets the same way that you can breed mounts. I'm going to make that assumption. I don't know if I'm right at all. I think that the point of the skins is when you breed these things for specific stats and for specific stat weights. So like talking about mounts, speed versus carrying capacity versus the special abilities to dismount someone or something like that. I think that we are going to end up with some pretty gross looking creatures when all is said and done, and having a skin that you can put over it so that it doesn't look like this Frankenstein creature. I think that's going to be really really important, really cool as well.
Yeah, and so it's interesting, right? Because from what we see, there are people who like the carrot skin or the caravan skin. but all three of us are all said no, we don't like this.
Yeah. No.
I mean, I like the two deer pulling it. I just don't like this super spindly, like frail looking thing. It's just
I
not
feel
my style.
I feel like there's like too many things that don't play off of each other. Like if you look at previous month packs, like not that I liked it or bought anything from it, but the mushroom pack was very clearly mushroom. Like it had a theme, it played to it. I feel like this one, the armor and the shield don't match the mount. The mount or the pets don't match the caravan. And
Mm, I think the
besides the
armor
gym,
matches as the mount.
I I just for me, I can't see that armor riding that mount. Like for that armor, I see it riding like some like angelic Drake,
Okay,
like
yeah. I
rather than
mean,
that
yeah.
thing.
That's fair. Okay.
It's a goofy looking mount, but you know what? It's goofy and awesome. I don't know what else to say.
I can totally see it, right? I can see especially this like the character on the right with the spear riding this like armored bird thing, this moon chicken, and just charging in. I think the colors all match. Now if you guys had to apply this to a race, what are you thinking?
Ooh, probably Empyrean
That was gonna be my guess as well.
or
Same.
Pyrite. It could be Pyrite, but most likely Empyrean. Um,
Going back to the mount skin thing here, real quick. Mount skins are applicable to specific classes of mounts. For example, the Ram Strider skin will only be applicable to the class of land mounts tier 1, and the Night Hunter Griffin skin is only applicable to the class of royal mounts tier 3.
yeah, so it could be
So
applied to any
I don't
tier.
remember who said it, but
Yeah.
yeah, any mount within the tier. So whoever said you could put your fox on a horse, that is correct.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, that's good. I think that's good because you don't want to limit skins that much. Otherwise, people don't buy the skins. Uh,
So I actually
I'll
was.
take this one,
I mean,
guys.
I'll go. Oh,
Oh, you got that one? Okay, you got that one.
no, I'm not letting them.
All right, fine. I'm not gonna let you guys drink alone.
We're not alcoholics if we're drinking alone. I actually think that it gives a little bit more of a legitimacy to animal husbandry and going out and getting a specific mount, whether that be in the world via quest or through animal husbandry or whatever. If let's say I have the Firefox mount, but a base fox mount is actually kind of rare to get. So then it just kind of adds another level to it. Maybe I have to go to like if I can just apply it to any mount, any ground mount that I have. Yes, from a payment standpoint, it's nice that I can just use it right away essentially once I get my first mount.
hmm
But I actually kind of liked the idea of it being tied to the specific creature of the mount and not just the tier.
I think
Because then it
that
requires a
makes
little
it
bit more
rarer,
work on the
right?
side of the player.
Yeah, you
Right.
have to get like a base horse to put your horse skin or a base fox to get your fox skin. I think that to Bardic's point, and I agree with this 100%, is that means though that you're sort of sitting there and saying, well, what if the new fox that I get is better than the bear that I used to have? Maybe it's faster, maybe it's just got better stats and better skills all around. So I always have to be sitting with a fox mount skin in my back pocket in case I want to upgrade. And I think that on the whole, that has the potential to disincentivize purchasing these skins. You just say, I like the skin, I can have the skin, but I can't use it for 6 months because I'm waiting to find that really cool bear or fox. And so I think that's why the tier one, your ground mounts and your water mounts, your tier two, which is your gliding mounts, and then your tier three, which are the royal flying mounts.
Yeah. The other thing with
Yeah.
it.
And from
Oh,
go ahead, Bert.
the other thing with it too is if you do it this way, it keeps more prestige on the in-game earnables. When you find that really cool rare mount in-game, it's still way more prestigious than someone who bought a skin and applied it to the mount. So like I don't think yeah, I kind of like the idea of it not being as rare when it's coming from the cash shop, not as much of a collector thing, because then people don't feel as much like they're missing out. If they didn't buy it, you only have to buy it if it really speaks to you, and you don't feel like you're missing out because the prestige is really from the in-game mount that you found or bought.
Oh, if you find a super rare in-game mount and it's got, all the speed and all the carrying capacity and all that stuff that you want, I'm even if I don't like the looks of it, I'm never going to put a skin on that because I want people to know this is the mount I got, this is the mount I found. I was able to tame this mount, and that alone has prestige to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and I think the point about the abilities, I mean, I've said before, I can't remember if I said it on stream, but I mean, my background is mostly theme park, and I don't. Most of my mount experience has been go do this quest, get this mount, go to this vendor, buy this mount, do this raid
Mhm.
achievement, get this mount. And the mounts haven't had any abilities beyond a water walking mount and a flying mount and a ground mount.
Yeah.
Um,
And then they
so
removed the
it-
water walking mount because they're like, this is too overpowered.
yeah. Well, they didn't remove it; they just allowed you to apply water walking to any mount. So
Yeah, well,
in
they removed the
ess-
water
in-
walking from it and just made it an
Yeah.
augment to every mount.
in essence, destroying all of the time and effort that I put in to get the very rare red water moccasin mount,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody else had the easier to obtain version, and I went for the rare one. And yeah, boom, like just
Yeah.
shit all over me. So
Yeah, and that's super annoying, right? It just feels really bad when something like that comes along and they change something and then all your hard work just goes to shit. It's
Yeah.
the reason like pay to win is just it feels so bad because you put in all this time and then suddenly your time's just devalued.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the big issue. And moving these things around down the road is going to lead to a decent amount of, what they're referring to as feature creep. I don't think we're going to see that here. I think that these mount skins and the mounts themselves are going to be applicable standard forever. We're just going to see more cool new mount skins.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, they've stated over and over that the stuff that we're seeing in the cash shop is not. I better be careful with my phrasing there. The stuff that we are seeing in the cosmetic shop is not supposed to be the best looking stuff. Now, that's open to interpretation, right? Like, I'm sure there's going to be some mounts that people go, "Oh, the cosmetic shop looks way better," but that's just on the personal side of stuff. But I mean, that's what Steven has said, is that it's supposed to be the better stuff coming out of the game itself rather than the cosmetic shop.
I mean, now, so here's the question, and this has come up, and I've discussed this ad nauseum with people. Does anyone here feel that cosmetic stuff is the end game? Do you guys feel that having cosmetics is quote unquote pay to win? And I want to phrase this and kind of frame this question in a very specific way. For certain people, gathering things and doing the cosmetics and getting the cosmetic grind is their game.
Yeah.
They will do the raid because I think of transmogs in WoW. They'll do raids that are 10 years old because they want that piece of gear to look like this certain piece of gear. And that is an end game. And so on some level I do feel bad about that. Do you guys feel that any portion of this cash up coming from for those type of people is pay to win?
Um
I think that from their aspect, yes. I think that if I was somebody who I played games primarily, keep in mind here that I'm talking about the people that this is their goal in the game. Their goal is particular mounts, their goal is particular transmog, not the rest of the content within the game. That is why they log in, that is why they play. For them, I understand why they would be upset about this and be upset about cosmetic shops in any game.
mhm.
I think a way that it can help is that the best stuff doesn't come from the cosmetic shop. So, like I said, that's been said, yet to be seen, but has been said. But from that aspect, I do think it is pay to win because a lot of those people are 100% collectors. So if they have everything achievable in the game, but then there's those however many mounts we have or however many transmog we have so far that they just can't get because they didn't buy in or they just didn't want to spend money for those items, absolutely. In that aspect, it's pay to win.
So here's my philosophy on it, and I agree with you. It is pay to win for those types of people, and unfortunately, you just can't please everyone with a game. It's just not possible to do. You know, you have to make some concessions in some places. I want to just bring up an overarching game philosophy that is a part of Steven's ideology when producing this game, and that is not everyone can do everything. There
Mhm.
is the fact that yes, some stuff you have to choose where you spend your time, and if you are a completionist, this game is probably not for you. I like the idea of being able to complete everything, but that's just not this style of game. And as I said, at a certain point, you just got to say, "This is what we're doing. Not everyone's going to be happy, and we're going to move on." But what I do want to talk about is this idea of a lot of people are unhappy with the fact that he has these monthly cosmetics already, and he's pumping them out every month, and he's already monetizing, and the game's not even out yet. A lot of people are really upset about that. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Don't buy.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, don't the thing is this is a monthly cosmetic now and this pack, when you really break it down, you're not paying that much. You're getting the value as what you would pay when the game goes live. If you're upset with a cash shop that is cosmetic only, I don't know what to tell you. And I know there are people. We have people in our communities that don't like cash shops at all. I think
Mhm.
that monetizing at this point to get an influx, I don't even think it's necessarily an influx of cash, right? There is, I'm sure that it helps, right? People need to eat. I know that their new studio is not cheap, but the influx of cash definitely is, I think, more about getting people into the game and having them be loyal. Because if you spend $500, $300, $200 on this game years before it's there, you're going to follow its development more closely than the person that says, "Oh, that looks like a cool game. Let me put that on my, my Steam wish list, and I'll check back in when I get an update about it."
Yeah, and there is that idea too of rewarding people for their efforts, right? Those people that
Mhm.
backed all the way back now, like nowadays, you're rewarded by being the only person with the option to get these items, or not the only person, but you know what I mean. And that's definitely like a factor that Steven wants to keep in this game. It's just like we were talking about before, where Super, you put in all this work to get your special red water strider, and then they just change it, and that just feels bad. And the idea behind these is never to do that. You have earned this. This is on you. You are a proud backer, and you deserve to be rewarded for that. And yeah, not everyone gets that. You had to be ahead of the game. You had to take that risk. And to my mind, it's gonna feel bad later on to those people who are like, "Oh man, I really wish I could get that." I'm already saying that about some skins that I wasn't here for. I'm like, "Oh man, I really wish I could get that,"
Yeah.
but I'm not upset about it. I understand it. But I guess the way I look at it is it's just smart business, as you said, Fane, getting people invested, and then part of what it does come down to though is having faith in Steven and Intrepid to keep with their philosophy. So this money that they're making, it's not just going into Steven's pocket because it's a privately held business. He's using that to make a better game, and then hopefully at some point continue to make good and great games in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think to one of your points, Fane, the first time you buy a pack, it doesn't cost as much as far as like when you take off like the embers, the game time, all that extra stuff that you're getting. Um, but once you have a pack and you're buying individual items, that is all that you're getting is that individual item. So I agree with the first part, but then once you have that pack, if you continue to buy items after that, you are purely just buying that individual item. Um, so, like I said, I agree with the first part, but I think we can't overlook that second part there because that is a little bit more direct as far as what Bard's saying is like this is a essentially a cosmetic cash shop right now, and if you buy after that initial pack, you are yes, you're getting an item out of it, but you're getting a skin out of it rather. Um, but you're not getting any additional stuff. So you are paying the exact value that Intrepid has put on that item.
Yeah.
I lost where I was going with that second part, but yeah. So I think that we can't overlook the additional part there. This is what it was. Sorry. I know that we've talked about it off stream, Bard and I, before, but I also think that the $500 doesn't only help build people's loyalty to the game, and not loyalty in the sense of like blind loyalty, but just hey, I'm gonna keep an eye on this. I paid $500. I'm absolutely gonna be in there and go test this, or else it is a waste. If you pay $500 and you never step foot in Alpha 1, you wasted your money, straight up. But it also is a little bit of a commitment threshold. I am 100% behind it being a little bit of a higher price. I had to take a drink there. I'm 100% behind it being a little bit of a higher price to make sure, yes, we want testers, but we don't want everybody and their mother in there. You want good testers. You don't just want bodies. They can create bodies to test the server. What they need are actual testers.
And I've talked about this before. I forget. I don't know at what point or with who, but at one point I said like the $500 is a form of gatekeeping, and it's an important form of gatekeeping because, as you said, it's only people with expendable income. That's generally, I'm sorry to say it if you're younger, but it's generally an older community that is going to take the testing more responsibly. They're not just there to play the game. They're not going to understand what the bugs are, why they're there, and how to try and get around it and work around it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's a good gatekeeping metric. They definitely need the testers. They've done the internal smoke tests, and I think anybody in this A1 can attest we have broken more than they did on any internal test already, which is good. And I know a lot of people. I was having this discussion. I'll say this. I'll plug. I'm working on a YouTube video about it. Stay tuned. And we're talking about this, the three concepts, because alpha has such a negative connotation, and I think that's why we're getting such a negative response, because these kind of early access alpha betas, and I tend to think they're broken down into three categories. So you have, the early, quote unquote, pre-alpha early access, and we could look at games like Last Oasis comes to mind, Valheim to some extent, and DayZ. And these are all amazing games in their own right as to what's being released now. But these companies are also telling you, please pay a premium for this unfinished product. We need a cash infusion. I don't think that Intrepid needs a cash infusion. They're actually asking you to test it before it's released to the public. So you're doing them a service, and yes, you are paying for that service. Now I want to kind of get your guys' opinion. I know I have my hard opinion on this, but back in the day when the three people you guys see on screen were young pups, game companies would hire teams to come in and QA test their games. Now it seems like the trend is more like, hey, pay for the game early, let us hold your money for a while. You can come in and test it for us. You're paying for the privilege of testing, and maybe we'll throw a cosmetic or two at you. How do you guys feel about that as the new meta, so to speak?
So I want to refute one thing. I don't agree. I do think Ash the Creation needs cash infusions. And not in the sense that it won't release if they don't, but to get this game out in a reasonable amount of time and faster so that Steven doesn't have to bankrupt himself, it does need cash infusions. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think the amount of money it takes to develop the games that are interesting nowadays is so different from the games you were talking about when we were young, once upon a time. It's like, when you think about the size of World of Warcraft, which is, was a fairly large project at the time, you're not looking at nearly the amount of complexity or anything like that kept people involved, kept people engaged. Like, you didn't have to do 250 on 250 battles. Whether that's a good thing or not, that's another discussion. But the amount of depth you need for a system, I'll say it before, we are doing this in the Axiom Discord the other day, just scrolling through your Steam library, and you have like 100 games, and you're just like, I don't want to play any of these. Like,
Mhm.
like you have infinite games. I remember back in the day just getting a new game and just be like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. And you got like one game every couple months. It wasn't like, yeah, infinite games and I'm still bored. So I think part of it is that with the evolving times, so has evolved the testing. But it's about going about it in the right way. I think putting out the PR in the right way is also important in terms of, hey, this is a true alpha test versus calling it something like early access. I think that's just a fallacy at this point. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
So
that's kind of where I fall.
I think there's a couple of factors that play into this a little bit. There was community-based testing when we were kids, but it was specific invite stuff. It was, hey, here's an NDA, you can come in, like, a long time Call of Duty player or something like that. I know a lot of competition people would go in um, and test the game, like they prove themselves to be good at the game, and the developers would want their feedback. Um, I mean that stuff is essentially done within WoW. Currently, you don't pay to test WoW, but they do get like Method and all these other guilds in there that it's kind of open, but it is limited in a sense because they actually have the people who have access to it. And even I believe it was Legion, they did do private guild raid testing.
Mhm.
Um, and they opened it up to all the guilds that were potentially world first, just so that way the world first race was fair. Um, but just as an example there, that I do think that there always has been community feedback on stuff. I think what we're seeing now is game development companies are recognizing how important the community feedback is. Now, I mentioned WoW in a positive note. Let me go ahead and destroy them real quick. Um, all of their beta tests, and you see this with like Destiny, Call of Duty, it's just an ad. It's hashtag ad, hashtag preview, hashtag like whatever. It's not actually a beta. You very rarely see meaningful change from a lot of these quote unquote alphas or quote unquote betas. And you've seen that even with some recent games. Um, Again, the paying into it side of it is, like Bard said, a little bit of a method of gatekeeping that I think is important. That way, it's not just flooded with complete random idiots who don't know what they're doing. I mean, that's a good way to see if your server side stuff works. But as we've seen, even with a $500 buy-in, we're still testing that in Ashes. We still have plenty of people in there testing that and breaking it weekly.
Mhm.
Um, to the point where we didn't have a test last week. um, so I think it is the new meta. To answer directly to the question, I do think it is the new meta, but I think it's an idea that has been there, and it's just now turned into the meta as opposed to the fifth tier class that you play, or just because you want to have fun.
Mhm.
And I do think it is a good meta. I mean, community input. I feel like something that's been lost and why Ashes just rings so true for so many different people is development companies don't understand that they're making a game for gamers.
Yeah.
You have to get the input from the gamers. Like like if you're making a game for targeting something, you can't just have good marketing target them. You need the actual product to be something that they want as well. Like, and so I think it's meta, and I think it's a good meta, even if it's paid.
Now, going kind of spinning off that and shifting to a different game. So then you guys are kind of okay with what's happened with New World. I know New World's been another big one that people have talked about in the recent past, right? Of they said, "Hey, we're ready to release a game. This is the game. Here's your beta preview." And then everyone got in and said, "Oh my god, it's buggy and we don't like it and it's not deep enough." And they said, "Okay, give us another year to work on it." Now that being good, I think everyone can agree that that's good. They're open to listening to feedback.
Maybe.
But I will say, yeah, maybe. But I'll say that this is sort of what excites me about Ashes as a product is they are coming in and saying, we want your feedback today. We don't want to get 3 months
Yes.
from release and then have to push back a year because the game that we thought you would love, you don't actually love.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. When you were like, "So you guys are okay with what's happening with New World?" I'm like, "Well, wait a second. Which part?" Because yes, as
Yeah.
you said, I'm okay with them pushing back a product. Like, yeah, don't release that product. It's just gonna fail. You're gonna all the money you spent on it is gonna be wasted. You might as well spend a little more and take another risk at making another failed game. But anyway, I would say, yeah, I think it's better that they listened eventually, but like the reason it is such a shit show is because they listened to too much community feedback or the wrong community feedback. Did we talk about this last week? I forget where I was talking about it with, but the original idea behind New World was this mix of like a survival game, MMO that you like. Yeah, like it was definitely a mix of a survival and an MMO where you could build up towns and then go to war with other towns. It was a lot like Ashes, but more survival based, where you when you're out in the wilderness, you had to worry about like making a camp and resting and getting food and water and all that kind of stuff. That was my original understanding of what New World was. And it seems like they just like, I don't know, like as I said, like I did some of the alpha testing before that actual like public preview alpha test. And I was just like, wait, the when I signed up for this alpha, I thought this was a completely different game. It was just coming out of left field. And from what I heard from some inside guys, like there's a bunch of like testers giving a bunch of feedback about how things they liked and didn't like. And it's like, I think it's really important to keep with design decisions, be a little flexible, but overall, you need to have an overall vision for the game and stick with it. When you just keep swapping back and forth, you're just like, I don't even know what's happening. At this point, I have no idea what's going to happen when New World releases. No idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and now it's funny that you bring that whole thing up because that was literally the first thing that I thought of was, well, technically New World that we saw on preview wasn't even what the game was intended to be. And now what we're going to see New World on launch is going to be different from preview. So yes, listening to the community is good. But I 100% agree. And this is why I think people are sold on Steven within Intrepid, because it's not just Intrepid, right? Like, though, I mean, he created Intrepid based off of his vision. Um, Ashes specifically is Steven. Steven is Ashes. Ashes is Steven. Like, if Steven just knock on wood, something bad happens, he's, what just disappears off the face of the earth. Like, I'm concerned about Ashes because it is his vision. And not even from the monetary side of stuff or any of the other things that would be of a concern, but that the studio wouldn't have that lead vision there, which is what I think New World has lacked. They've had a good idea of a game that they want to have, but I've seen too much flip flopping for there to be
Yeah.
like a consistent vision.
I mean, I still think like a mixture of a survival and an MMO with a PvP focus would be huge. It's kind of like Rust in a fantasy setting, right? Like that would be super fun, especially if it's like even bigger than Rust in terms of like how many people you can get on a server. Because there's just so many things to think about. And like, yeah, it's not all about combat. Maybe it's just an attrition game where you're trying to chase someone down and keep them from, getting a rest and getting water and health and all that. Like, there's so many ways to make that super interesting and fun. And they just like, I still don't even know what they're going for right now in terms of gameplay.
Yeah, it's kind of a trend that we're seeing too. And I can think of Anthem. Anthem was another game that was really, really hyped, and then the hype fell off. I think
Hmm.
Outriders to some extent. And I think this kind of all comes back to that centralized point of getting your community in early, not just like these top 1% content creators who will absolutely white knight your game or destroy your game. Really getting your average player in very early to get in there, experience it, and see if your game is good or not. And you look at these larger game development studios, and I'm going to pick on the child in the room that can always be picked on, Blizzard, right? Blizzard literally stood on a stage and it said, instead of Diablo 4, which is what you all wanted, we're going to introduce Diablo Mobile. And then when someone was asked about classic World of Warcraft servers. They said, you don't really want that. You think you do, but you don't. And Classic has been so beloved, and people have gone back and played through these things that they remember from their childhood or their young adulthood, that now, we're coming out on the other side, and they've released a second expansion. Now we have Burning Crusade, the second expansion. People are reliving this. And I think that these game studios need to understand that on some level, these older game studios, you are selling nostalgia, and you also need to look at the fact that you are maybe a little bit out of touch with your community as to what your community is actually asking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and as an example within Blizzard that I think is good, and I'm not thrilled that he's gone, but Jeff from the Overwatch team
Oh,
is
my dad.
He had a good pulse on the community. The development
Mhm.
update videos that he had, he went on to streamers, which I actually found to be very curious that was happening around the same time that Steven was doing that for Ashes. So I don't know if he was like, if that was a tip of the hat, like, hey, good idea, I'm going to do this too, which is fine. Like, if you see something good working, like, replicate that. I mean, that's how companies learn. If you're stuck in your ways, Blizzard as a whole, then you don't actually get anything good out of it. So I think that like, there was a period of Overwatch when it first came out where everybody was excited for the game itself. And then it dipped down a little bit, and then you see Jeff come in, and especially like with the Overwatch League, and you see like this increased hype around it. Everybody's coming back to it. Oh, they're listening to us. Oh, Jeff said Brigitte's overtuned. Like, yeah, I agree with that. Like, and now with him gone, it's kind of like, who's that going to be? And the guy that they replaced him with is just kind of, they might need to get somebody else. Yeah.
It's tough. And Overwatch has always been a tough child. Like, I played a lot of very competitive, high level Overwatch back in my younger years when I was good at games like that. And the team at Blizzard was always very receptive to feedback, to the point that we would say, this looks bad. This comp, Goats comp, for anyone that remembers that, you would have.
Loved it. I loved it.
I did too. Trust me. That was your Ryan, Zarya, and Diva with 3 healers, depending, Morio, Lucio, Zen, something like that. And they said, this is the best way. This is it. You've got, all these heroes, and literally none of the DPS heroes, the most popular heroes, are able to be played because of this. And then they said, okay, well then we're going to adjust and we're going to make a fix. Did that, they banned certain heroes. They forced a 2-2-2 comp. Do those things work out perfectly? No, but it shows that they are reacting, and that this product isn't just, hey, we've gotten the majority, we feel that we've gotten 80% of the money we're going to make off of Overwatch. We've gotten it off of Overwatch so far. Now it's time to move on to the next project. They're still iterating, and it's a live project, and it feels that way.
There's something I want to go back and address and just make perfectly crystal clear here to any developers of any game ever that might see this. I say developer, I'm more referring to the studio as a whole, the big wigs making the decisions. I know that the developers themselves want to put out a game that not only their community wants to play, but that they want to play. And I think that that's something that kind of gets lost in all the words a lot of times, as we just say developers or we say Blizzard. But as Steven has said about Intrepid, there are people behind the game. And so I want to make very clear that when we're bashing on your title, when we're bashing on, your company, unless you're a piece of shit developer that deserves this, then I personally recognize that the developers are wanting to create a good game. I have to believe that. I refuse to believe otherwise.
Yeah, and it's interesting because at one point, one of the classic WoW developers came out and said that they had there was a point where they were talking about trying to take WoW in a direction a lot more like AOC, where the players would have a much more drastic effect on the world, be able to like kind of build up the world around them. And at some point, it just got thrown out the window, and they just went full roller coaster track theme park style game. Um, And they said that that was kind of the turning point and where it started to go downhill. And I think that he was saying that discussion happened sometime around Burning Crusade. And I mean, I don't trust Blizzard to do this, but I still want to see like a classic WoW plus. I want to see where you could take that game and make it like super cool, as opposed to just like gimmicky little things and still just once again, it's like WoW is not a game. It's just a bunch of mini games within a game.
Well,
100%.
and I think the solution, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty, but in my head, the first thing that pops into mind of a solution is you put together a development team of people with a similar vision. You say, hey, here's a bunch of money, create this game. Create it for gamers, by gamers, TM. You know, like, and but the problem with that is it's a risk. They didn't even want to relaunch something that was a proven success while the
Mhm.
community was asking for it. They would rather say, oh, no, you don't actually want this, than realize, oh, there's hundreds of thousands of players playing on non legit servers, classic WoW. We are clearly not getting like, and then that ensued lawsuits and all of this other stuff, and then
Yeah.
they ended up launching it themselves, and now they're eating their words a little bit. I will say that for me, vanilla WoW lol, like come on, like
All right. All right. All right. All right. Let's now talk about Warcraft 3 remastered.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Like, oh yeah, classic WoW. Yeah, no one wants that, but everyone wants because I believe Warcraft 3 remastered came out before classic WoW, right? Correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but they're like, okay, yeah, no one wants classic WoW, but we're gonna remaster this old RTS that no one is asking for. And then when it came out, there was a solid crew of people that were like, yeah, this is gonna be really cool. We do want this. And then they literally just gutted the game. They made it terrible. They took out like the main thing that was awesome about Warcraft 3, which was the custom games. They're just like, yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. And then they made a bunch of like terrible decisions in terms of art and like how graphics looked. It just looked awful. And you're like, so I'm getting a gutted version of the game that looks worse than the original game. And I'm supposed to enjoy this? I'm confused.
So talking about, going back and bringing this sort of back to Ashes as the
Yeah.
centralized point. Do you guys ever want to see within Ashes of Creation years down the road? Do you ever want to see a situation where they say, "Hey, we're spinning up a brand new fresh server and see if would you like to play on that at all?"
Oh
Do you guys
yes,
think that's going to happen?
100%, 100%. I mean, this is going to be an unpopular opinion, or at least an opinion that is, I would say, controversial. At least, I would like private servers eventually. Not right at launch, but eventually, I would like the big streamers to be able to roll up a server with some like just like a lot of the private servers in other games where they can make slight adjustments and changes to exp gains and resource levels and things like that and run a server. It would be great content for someone like any of us to, or all of us to get together and run this private server, especially at like expedited games, right? Just to like
Yeah.
see this starting rush and see what happens, and then like a just accelerated mass of everything happening. I think that would be cool as fuck. Um, but it would have to be something down the road because you don't like obviously you want to make sure most of the things have been discovered, or maybe after a couple expansions they give the option for a classic server private server where some streamers or some content creators can come in, get a community together to all start on this, but all you get is the current content so people aren't progressing through the content, getting bored, not spending money on in the real game, right?
Mhm.
And I think either way you do it, it needs to be officially licensed. And I think you still should have every player paying a subscription fee and all that. Cause like I like we need to give Intrepid money. And I'm not saying right now, like, they're still in development. I'm not saying just throw money at them, but I'm saying they need to make money or they don't make further content. They don't develop new games and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really fair point. I also think it's a really good way to kind of prevent the loss of players when you have a semi-active server and an inactive server, and one has to be absorbed by the other. And you
Mhm.
have a whole group of people that join a server and say, "Well, this isn't the world that I'm used to, and I'm already so far behind, and there's all these other things that I don't think I'm going to be able to accomplish." And we'd have to re-rally and reform a guild. I think new servers would be a great way to take 3 inactive servers and tell people, "Hey, we're rolling this new server with the intention of it being for you.
Mhm.
Possibly even we're gonna shut down your servers because they're not that popular, and so you guys are all gonna re-roll on this server, and maybe we'll even move your character over in the state that your character is in now, geared out and high level and
Mhm.
all that, but you need to recreate your adventure here to bring up player populations."
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of replayability in this game as well. Um,
Mhm.
with a lot of player driven content and the worlds being different and changing. I think there's just a huge amount of replayability, and it's definitely I think it's going to be super interesting to go in after you've already seen a bunch of server launches and just like we now have this knowledge. What are we going to do with it?
100%. Yeah, I think that's gonna look really interesting to see because at some point there's gonna be some centralized map resource that's gonna say, "This is what the nodes look like. Here's what dungeons, raids, and PvE content were available. Over here, this is what the nodes look like, and this is what was available." And it's gonna be different. You'll have all these different maps in the same way that you see a game like Valheim, and every time you create
Hmm.
a world, it creates a new seed and you can map out the seeds. And at this point with that game, you can go back and say, "Well, I want to load in this seed to my private server because I want the map to look like this."
Hmm.
Well, and I think to the new server thing, it would be interesting if they like released a fresh server with every big expansion. So obviously, when the game first comes out, Ashes 1.0. For Ashes 2.0, they have one server, and then if they need to spin up another one because it's super popular, like because depending on what new stuff gets introduced to the game over time, and I think it's not going to technically follow the traditional 1.0, 1.5, 1.8, 2.0 kind of a path, but
Hmm.
more of a hey, the world now reacts this way. I see Ashes being more of a bear with me with the comparison here. Fortnite events. Never played the game, but anytime a new Fortnite anytime a new Fortnite event would happen, it would change the world. I mean, they literally had an event that like blew up certain parts of the world, like
Yeah.
and that's what I see Ashes being more like is like, hey, all of the volcanoes on the map are now active.
Well,
Beware where you mine, like or something like that,
here
and that's Ashes 2.0.
here's the other thing. Like I think for major expansions, yes, make an announcement or major content changes, but I would like them to be constantly making little changes to the world. Like, hey, we worked on this little segment. Now this is happening in the world, and don't tell anyone. You
Right,
just find out, like, you're just out there doing something, and just something new happens. You're like, what the fuck was that? And then you just get together, like, guys, look at this. We got to figure this out. Like, the amount of hype, the amount of like, people wouldn't stop playing. You just keep exploring if you're constantly adding in new little things here and there. It just makes the world feel seamless as it evolves rather
right,
than saying, oh, here's a new content patch. Now everyone come back and just hyper rush this. It's like, no, the people that were there playing get rewarded because they discovered this.
yeah,
And there is going to be some aspect of like pulling in people to test that new content. They'll be under strict NDA that is like, you can't say anything about this. And then it's like, well, who do you get to play that, pulled into that? Because then those people still have that inside information. So I don't know how
right.
to make it work. It just sounds so cool to me.
No,
Well,
100%. It's I think that that's gonna be like a really fun kind of explorative when they put new things in and they don't tell anybody where the new stuff is. My only fear with this game, and this is my one fear with the node system, is based on how people play MMOs. They like to know that this quest is here, that vendor is there, all of these things are exactly where they are every single time. And so my fear is that we're going to see 5 metros form on a server and nobody's going to want to move because even if they're like, "Well, I'm not in a metro, that sucks that I can't be in this metro, but I know where the closest metro is, and maybe I'll go over to this level 3 or 4 node, and I'm kind of close to the metro that's important to me, and that'll be good enough." So I'm hoping that there are actual things that force change and force. We already know there's going to be node degradation, but I want to make sure that people that feel that they're locked into a tier 3, 4, or 5 node don't feel like there's no hope for them, and that there is a constant shifting of power in the game.
So I got an event idea. Stephen, Margaret, Toast, if anybody is there or sees this. Um, we never see a blood moon, but we're randomly playing one day and one pops up, and that blood moon allows everybody from the underrealm, all the NPCs from the underrealm, all the enemies, NPCs, everything to be able to go up to the top side, and they just wreak havoc on everything. And it's just, I mean, essentially just monster coin events popping off nonstop at every single node for like an entire weekend or an entire week or something like that, and shit's just going crazy. Nodes are blowing up, like, just castles are being taken back over, and then the blood moon goes away, and now we have to rebuild, reform, and treat it like essentially a natural disaster. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something happens and you got to rebuild.
Now, I don't want to get Thane started on Monster Coin events, but if we're throwing out ideas for content, this is one we were talking about in our guild Discord the other day. But the idea of basically, for some expansion, like a labyrinth appearing underneath at least one metro or maybe all the metros, and it's interconnected, but a labyrinth where you're like basically working your way down in levels of PvE content. It would be instanced at first. And then as you work your way down, it gets harder and harder and harder. So it's kind of like a Greater Rift system or a Mythic Plus system from WoW or Diablo 3, where you're just constantly trying to progress harder and further and further. You're getting slightly better rewards as you go. It shouldn't be exponential or like linear, but you get slightly better rewards as you go. It's more about the challenge. And then at a certain point, each server has its own labyrinth. And then as a way to introduce like a multiverse, basically as you're progressing, you find like a dimensional rift, which ports you to another server's labyrinth where you appear, and you might run into the people on that server while they're fighting through the labyrinth. And you have to figure out, do we fight each other? Do we work together? Do we turn around and just run away? But it's a way to do cross server without like ruining the world. There's a reason for it, like this cross-dimensional rift. And as you're like going through the labyrinth, you find your way into this other server's labyrinth, and each one is unique and people have gone different levels. That just sounded so cool to me. So just rambling
like
about
that
ideas.
I like that idea a lot, actually. That's a good way to be able to play with your friends that you've made that are on different servers.
Well,
but
there's no way to guarantee it, right? Like it would just be random.
You have to take the chance. You definitely have to take the chance.
Yeah, I just thought like it would be a cool way, and we've already been set up for the idea of a multiverse, right? I feel like we all might have come from the same Sanctus, but just been split up into all these servers, which are really just like different worlds or different Veras within the same multiverse. Because when you're looking at planes of existence from Dungeons and Dragons and all this other stuff, and then the idea and then he's already talked about how you said it during, I think it was the 24-hour live stream, or at some point he was talking about how magic works, and at the very top of the plane of existence is the plane of magic, and as you work your way down further and further away, you get further and further disconnected from magic, and then at the certain point is the void, where the the 3 or the 7, the 3 bad gods were banished to. I don't remember, it was 3 or 7 they're banished to, and I'm guessing Sanctus without magic is just like slightly above that, and then it opens up within this plane of existence for a multiverse, and just like crazy cool cross server events potentially happening without ruining the server, without ruining the lore and the individual servers themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because the lore is going to be different, right? The way that they've kind of talked about the lore and the way that you're going to quest. I believe they've mentioned that there are racial quests and social organization quests, and you're going to all start kind of in a similar spot, and then the questing will branch out, and then it's all going to kind of come back together in the end as you're all finishing up some sort of story and quest line.
Yeah. Well, and I
Yeah.
think that that's what's going to be very interesting about kind of the initial kickoff of the game going
Mhm.
live is literally your first 5 or 10 steps out the divine gateway is going to be the same as everybody else, minus who you created for your class and whatnot. But then, like the moment the questing starts, the moment the nodes develop, depending on what race levels up the node, like all of this different stuff is going to then steer you into a different direction than everybody else around you.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, you look at stuff like you're going to have, I mean, we're talking about, you're going to have all these different server guides. Like you'll have a guide for Norlon and you'll have a guide for Lineth and you'll have a guide for, all of the different servers based on how that server is developing. But you're also going to have a Tolnar guide and you're going to have like each class, each race is going to have its own guide because the quests that you get are going to be different than, whereas in WoW, it's just like, hey, here's your quest rails, hop aboard. And when you're done, you maybe will know it. Like with Ashes, you sure as shit aren't going to ever know when you're done testing because if they're implementing content at a good pace, there's basically always going to be something to do. And there's no clear end to the game.
Mhm.
And there's really even no clear start. What do I do? Do I go down my class train? Do I focus on crafting, like gathering
Yeah.
like there's so many different paths that you can take right off the bat that it's
Well,
just it's gonna
so
be, I think it's gonna be great.
it's interesting. We've been playing No Man's Sky as a guild for the last week or so, and I've had that experience multiple times where I'm just like, I don't really know what to do now, and it's like, well, I can do anything. I can just go and do whatever. But I have a like on another note, I kind of have a question for you guys. Do you guys think with how the servers progress and how content is locked behind certain servers, do you think that is going to affect what kind of end game gear you can get? Because that will literally mean that like it'll be really hard to form a meta if all these different like because each server has access to completely different gear sets.
Yeah, I
If
think that's what you're going to see, right? With the raid bosses and things like that. Is this raid boss from this guy? He only drops a blueprint for an amazing sword, and this one over here drops a blueprint for some light armor. And so, if you want to be fully legendary geared out, you're going to have to figure out: can you be something that uses a broadsword and cloth armor? And that's going to have to be like your legendary stat weights and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think if they do it right, that will be implemented that way and stay that way. In my opinion, I think a meta for one server should be different than another server. I think that helps
Hmm.
create dynamic gameplay. I think it even gets people thinking, huh, do I want to continue to play on this server? Or do I want to go over there where they have all of the epic crafting, stuff going on, or stay over here where all the
Yeah.
epic PvP stuff is going on? Now, it would be nice if, all of the things were touched on in all of the different servers, and I think they will be. And I think what's important is you have that there for the min maxers, but you need the feeling of the server to be that from the player side, the player experience, that you do feel like you are not being shit on because you're on the wrong server. Um, so it needs to be a min maxer's delight rather than a necessity to be really good. You know what I mean? Like, so
Well, I
Yeah,
still
you shouldn't feel non-competitive because you're on the quote unquote wrong server.
right.
yeah. Well, I still just think like the idea of it is I don't think this game is about world first or clearing the content first. I don't think it's about the content. I think it's about what you accomplish in comparison to the rest of the server.
Mhm.
I don't think it matters if some other server, they've all banded together and say it's some massive guild, it's some goon squad or the goon squad that just comes in and they literally just like raise up a metro. They have 10,000 members. They have the entire server under control. They raise up a metro, get everything they can, drop it down, go and raise up another metro, get everything they can around there, drop it down, just keep going around until they get everything unlocked. They can play that way. If that's how they enjoy playing the game, then you can go do that. But in my opinion, I will never judge my success by something like that. I will be judging my success by how the rest of the server is doing. So if our guild is the top, our guild and me personally, like, I'm the top bard on the server. I've got the best gear. I've done a bunch of stuff. I'm really rich. Like, that's how I gear my success versus. And that's kind of the idea. Like, I said it when they were talking about, well, how should guilds measure their success? What kind of like metrics do you want to measure guild success? And I was like, I want none of that. I want to decide what is my own success ratio or metrics. So,
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. Like, your metrics need to be set the way you want to do it, and maybe for you, it is your success versus another server, or your success versus your own server, or even your success versus another server. Like, we've unlocked 5 raid bosses, and each one has this some legendary weapons. We've got all these legendary weapons, and on the other server, they're like, "Well, we haven't done any of the raid bosses, and we don't have any legendaries on our server," and that's kind of sad. And it's like, okay, we're on a. I think that's how you'll be able to delineate between servers in terms of a competitive nature, things like that.
yeah, but the other aspect of that is the server that hasn't unlocked any of that has potential, whereas the server that has, it's the content's completed. It's the legendaries are one in a server, so yeah, I don't want to go over there. No, I want to earn it on my server.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, another good question here is, do you think there's a high probability that servers will evolve differently, or do you think servers will kind of often follow the same path and not be that different from each other, at least to start, right? Because everyone just kind of like falls naturally into certain areas that the nodes get raised up in.
I think as long as there are multiple, so I think where the approach of this could go wrong is if they try to make everything equal. I think that there needs to be, let's say, 10 clear locations that are like BIS. These are the meta locations to go to from the start. Instead of trying to like equalize everything, try to get people to debate over a fewer number of locations. These are the best ones to go to, depending on what your guild wants to do. This is the best. These 3 locations are the best if you want to be a shipbuilding guild and you want to be naval. You want to rule the waterways. These 2 are best if you want to, be big resource gatherers. You want to be a huge crafting guild, whatever, and kind of spread those things out. That way, you're having guilds forced to make a decision based on a fewer number of locations rather than, hey, anywhere could be good. It's like, no, let's make clear options here, but let's make multiple clear options. That way it's more of a debate, like I said, on 10 numbers rather than 108. But yeah.
I'm going to take the other side of that. I think that having them all equal with an equal amount of opportunity it kind of opens up the world a little bit. Now, do I think that the servers, the original question, do I think there's a high chance that they're going to develop in a similar way? Absolutely. Because when you have people spawning through 4 divine gateways and doing 4 separate like quest lines or so for their racial quests, you're going to see a lot of node experience in those early quote unquote starting areas. In fact, I even think that maybe they should nerf the node experience in those things to half for the first week or so that it will encourage people, hey, we can stay here and we have all these people contributing to the node to help level the node up, but maybe it makes more sense to spread out and we can level up a node spread way out over here in the corner and that will level up.
I think that's the interesting thing. They'll get a good idea of whether that's necessary if they implement server reservations, right? The idea that a guild can register on a server, say we're going on this server. They see if they see almost every single server having good amount of already organized people, I don't think that's necessary. They're going to go out and do their thing already organized versus and I honestly think that's going to be the larger portion of servers. Most servers are going to be organized to begin with. I don't think you're going to see as many, small unorganized factions as you are going to see. And I'm not talking about massive factions. I'm not talking about Asmongold coming in with 50,000 people alone. I'm just talking about like I think most servers are going to come in with a decent amount of medium to large size organized groups that will help shape the server differently. And I can tell you from talking to our guild, right, that everyone has a different idea on what node type they want to be in, where they want to be in terms of geographic location. Like the ideas are already so drastic. I don't see if they do a good job of mixing up the nodes after the beta and not giving us a clear cut idea of what is the best meta right off the bat. I think there's going to be a very different balance from each server.
They're not mixing up the nodes after beta.
Are you sure? I heard they were.
I thought they were mixing up the node type, not node location, but node
yes,
type.
yes, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so like what in beta was a scientific node may be a divide node at launch. Yeah.
But that location will still be a node.
Yes.
So here's a question: do you think that, let's say throughout beta testing on the different servers, different servers and whatnot have different gateway locations, and when the game goes live, you don't know what gateway locations you're going to get on your server? And so all these super big organized guilds, what they'll do is they'll just over logistics the shit out of it and have a plan for whichever layout they get. But what that'll do is that will potentially help force people to have a different layout, at least off the bat.
So what you're talking about is you can choose a node or a divine portal to spawn on, and it'll always be the same on your. So say you have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and everyone in your guild decides to spawn on 2. But where 2 spawns between the 4 nodes of the world is completely random per server. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, not so random that like we don't know. Like it would still need to be something that's tested, right?
And are you saying an actual different geographic location for the divine node itself, or the geographic location is the same, but the number you pick gets randomized?
The geographical location will switch, but still be within the race specific, because that's what I think they were kind of going for, is like one's like kind of an elven spawn point, one's kind of a dwarven spawn point. And you can pick whichever one you want, but that the server is essentially a way for Intrepid. This is just off the top of the head. I haven't thought it through completely.
Yeah.
But this would be in my head a way that they can kind of force the player base to at least start with a different layout of a server. Because what I see happening is the first, like, let's say maybe 3 months or something like that is going to be, you'll get kind of the same stuff going on 2 or 3 different servers. And that might be something. I'm like I said, I'm bringing it up for your guys' thoughts, if that would help maybe stir the pot a little bit at the beginning.
I think so. My initial reaction is yes, but as I kind of think about that idea, I think that what that's just going to cause is within the organized guilds, and I think the organized guilds and the organized groups are going to be the ones that tend to create metropolises, tend to level up the metropolises faster, and tend to be the big influencers on the server. I think you're adding in a level of chaos that I'm not sure is necessarily beneficial. And I'm saying this from a guild perspective. We're already going to have an issue of getting to an area, getting everyone together, leveling up the node until we can create a guild. Creating a guild, and then you've only got 30 people in the guild, and those 30 people need to work really, really hard to level up the guild so that you can add more people. So you're already going to have probably what's going to end up working out to a week or two where your guild isn't even your true guild, right? It's just a semi-loose organized group of people in a Discord chat that aren't really truly assisting with the leveling up of that guild. So I would love that idea if guilds started at their max capacity and a guild was just the size of a guild and you just had to get in there and do it. I think having the randomization isn't necessarily going to help because so much of a guild can spawn anywhere, right? As long as you have in the first few days your concrete core in the same location, leveling up an area so that they can become that first 30-man guild, and the other members that aren't in that first 30 people leveling up the node passively as an individual, I think that you'll end up in the same with the same result no matter
Yeah.
what.
So I have two things to say on it. The first is I think every decent sized and organized guild is absolutely going to hate the idea. They're going to bitch and moan about it. They want clarity. They
I mean,
want
I hear that and I
organized.
think good.
I
I think
mean,
good.
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's going to happen. The other thing I'm going to say is I don't think that's a decision that really can be made until after beta 1 and 2, when you
Yeah.
see how it all plays out. Because as I said,
Mhm.
I don't see that even being necessary. I think there's gonna be enough organization, and each guild is gonna have each of those guilds organized is gonna have a different idea. That I really do think servers are just gonna pop up naturally different. I don't think it's even necessary because I think there are already plenty of guilds that are like, yeah, we're getting the fuck away from the starting area and we're gonna do our own thing and we're gonna be the first metropolis. Um, but yeah, it's something we'll have to see with time, I guess. And that's what I would say. But I would say yes, if it seems like every server is developing in the exact same way after beta 1 and beta 2, I think at that point it's time to discuss something to stop that from happening. Because like the true
Yeah.
value of this game is every server being different.
Yeah, and I think we already see it a little bit in alpha, right? We don't have that many necessarily that many locations, right? We
Hmm.
don't have that many nodes, but you do see things like Drythorn is an extremely popular node that a lot of people try to level up.
Well,
Winstead is an
yeah.
extremely popular node.
Winstead
Uh,
is the most popular. Nala is like second, and then Drythorn.
Null Null is second, and then Drythorn. So you see, like, really these three nodes, and then there are other nodes, but they're not nearly as popular as people have gone. And some of that is, certain guilds min-maxing the density of quests to the density of mobs to help level the node faster. But some
Hmm.
of it is just people feel comfortable. I feel comfortable going to XYZ node. I feel comfortable knowing that Orgrimmar or Stormwind is always in the same location. And I think that as MMO players, we've been trained to see there's so much variable that we
Yeah.
seek the comfort, right? We seek the constant. I think that's just a human trait. And so I think having these nodes that are going to be kind of preferential, and going back to the real original question of having 10 like BIS nodes, even that you're with the popularity of this game, those becoming the first nodes to really start leveling and become metros is going to be an
Well,
issue because you're going to end up with these very static nodes. I mean, what's the cooldown on a siege of a metro? It's 50 days, almost 2 months. And then there's a declaration period as well. I mean, the metros being sieged down is going to be maybe twice a year. So
Well, yeah.
making sure that these develop independently is going to be really important.
Well, the other idea is like it's very easy to change that idea of 10 BIS. It's like there's a BIS for every single aspect you're trying to do. If you're trying to do shipbuilding, there's a BIS for that. If you're trying to do, whatever, if you're trying to do blacksmithing, if you're trying to do weaponsmithing, well, maybe a node near the mountains is BIS. If you're trying to get like certain rests, like you can just vary the BIS so easily by just adding in things that are locked behind that having to be raised up to a metro, right?
Mhm.
So I don't see it forming to be a 10 BIS. I can see it being 10 BIS if you want to get the first metro ever, or if you want to get metro before other servers. But
Mhm.
ultimately, I think There's going to be so much content locked behind these nodes that you don't know what BIS is. There's no way to know until you actually get it to Metro and see.
Well, we're only going to see half the map, right? By the time we get there, like by the time the betas are supposed to be 50% of the map. So
I don't
50%
see how
might
that
be
works,
relatively.
though. I
I
feel
think
like
it's
you
just going to
have.
end up being one continent.
I just don't see how you only do half the map for the beta. I feel like you have to test it all. I just don't see a
Uh,
way around that without. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you on like a logistical standpoint.
Yeah.
But in terms of, let's assume that everything does run perfectly, and once you get half the world running perfectly, the other half will run perfectly. It's going to be very interesting to see the division of players, where half say, we're going to go to the part that we've already explored and already had a chance to explore because we know what that's going to look like. And the
Mhm.
other half of people say, we've done this content. Let's go out to the continent that we haven't explored, the area that we haven't explored. Let's find the new thing because maybe that's going to be the best thing. We might find the best thing ever. And I think that's going to be super, super interesting to see.
So as this raid is coming in here, what's up,
Yeah.
Sego?
Appreciate that
Um,
raid.
I have a question pertaining to the alpha, and we're talking about content that is maybe going to be within the game. Let's talk about the content within Alpha Zero that we do have in the game. And my question related to it is, do you guys think that, I guess two questions here. Do you guys think that the content that we currently have on the alpha test server is enough content for the month-long no visual NDA test when the eyes of the world are looking at the game? Second part of the question is, I think we all think that there's a lot of stuff being worked on that we don't see even as alpha testers. Do you
Mhm.
think that all of that stuff is in a okay enough place for it to be previewed in that first visual NDA drop, or do you think they will hold off, wait for the hype to die down a little bit, and then implement stuff to start testing again? So two-part
So
question there.
so what I want to say, I want to preface this entire discussion with we are going to revisit this discussion the week before the potential NDA drop or like 2 weeks before, whichever. We are going to revisit this as time goes on. We originally decided to do this on Wednesdays because we thought the alpha testing was going to happen on Wednesdays. So we'd be immediately able to talk about, hey, here's what's going on. Let those who aren't alpha testers know what's going on. Um, what I would say is at the current state, I think it's a terrible decision to drop the visual NDA. If what happens on that happened this Friday happens, while some big streamers and all of that are streaming this, you're gonna get a bunch of negative reactions. Unfortunately. And it's up to us content creators to try and help everyone understand what's going on here, what this is. This is a true alpha. Um, but unfortunately, like this is the internet. I brought it up in one of my videos, but one of my favorite quotes ever is from Men in Black, where Agent K is telling what's his name, Agent J, which is Will Smith. Basically, he's like, people are smart, or like a person is smart, but people are dumb and panicky animals. When a mob mentality forms, it can be incredibly damaging. It can just, people don't make rational, smart decisions when there's a bunch of people telling them what to think. And unfortunately, when you get a bunch of big streamers that see 15 minutes of gameplay before the entire server crashes, and then you log in and out and you're seeing multiples of your character there, it's not going to go well. I think being able to speak about it and be able to phrase it in the right way is really good. I still think the verbal NDA drop was a genius way around this pushback. I think it's really good. The people who are dedicated and care enough to talk about it will form it as a discussion. And so, yeah, right now the way I'm looking at it is it's not ready for a visual NDA drop, but it also seems like there's just a small thing going on with this server degradation. They could find that, fix it, and then be able to just plug in all this content. And 3 weeks from now, it'll be exactly a month from now that it would drop. We could be in a good state that it's like, all right, yeah, let's get a visual NDA drop, at least for like a period of time. Maybe let's do a weekend visual NDA or something like that. But I do kind of hope that Steven talks a little bit about it beforehand. I hope we get some like in this next dev update at the end of June. I hope they address it a little bit and just like go over the pros and cons of everything and say, hey, here's where we're coming from with it. We want to drop it, yes, but we also want this project to succeed. Here's the pros and cons, and then form it as a discussion. Be like, what do you guys think? And then kind of see from there. Because if it's an overwhelming, just like we don't care, drop it. Maybe you can get away with it. Anyway, enough of my ranting. What do you think, Thane?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you on that. I'm a little bit nervous, right? I was bummed that they pushed it back, but seeing the state of the game today, I'm glad that we still have this visual NDA up because there are things that people will not understand. People just don't get what early alphas are, what true development alphas are. And so we are, making this game great for the day it's released. And you guys can send all of us cards at our PO box. No. But it is a dangerous thing, and I really am interested in revisiting this the week before the NDA drops. We might have a totally different opinion of it by then. My feeling in terms of the original question of is there enough content is I think that there's some content. If you don't just try to power rush through the game, there is some content. Is there enough? Yes and no. I think that people who haven't seen the game are going to be very interested to see people moving around, going to different biomes, fighting different monsters. There's going to be castle sieges twice a day. There's going to be a lot of stuff to do. I also think that having seen the tests before the game looks like what it looks like now, I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked when we got in for that first weekend, and I'm like, oh, there's literally like 3 times the amount of quests, and there's this whole new area, and there's this whole new cave that was just a pointless cave with nothing in it before, and now it's actually, now you're collecting flowers and finding soldiers' bodies, and the way that they were able to plug in all these quest givers and create content that way, I think that the quests are very basic, and I think everyone needs to be very aware that they are still hiring a quest developer and writer, so someone to really flesh out these quests. So I think that if it's presented in the correct way, there is enough content for a month. I think if we see the fighter and the ranger entering Alpha 1, there is enough content for a month. We'll see what it looks like by the time we get there, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern is that I feel like we don't have enough content for a month. Like that,
Yeah.
that I think that's the key thing there is the month-long portion of it. And I do believe, and I mean, people in the Virtue Discord have probably heard me say it a couple times now, is I absolutely 110% believe that there is content that is being created on multiple different test servers, just like with the Siege stuff, that once they figure out the server degradation side of stuff, they can just start plug and playing. Like I literally just imagine Steven in a room full of light switches, and each switch is tied to a system that's already in the game, already like ready to start being tested. And once the servers are good, once the visual's gone, it's just boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, and it just starts turning these things on like crazy.
And that's the thing. Like by no means am I an expert programmer, but I am assuming they have so many different builds of this already with different
Yeah.
systems already plugged in that they're trying.
Mhm.
And I'm sure they're doing internal testing with different systems plugged in. And as I said, they're kind of at that standstill right now with that server degradation issue. But I am guessing once they figure that out and apply that to all the rest of the builds, do a little testing, we might just see a rapid fire content release. Just as you were saying, Super.
Well, and I
yeah.
think the concern comes from the place of, and we talked about it before off stream, Bard. is whether we like it or not, the eyes of the gaming world are on Ashes of Creation. Whether individuals know it or not, once that visual drops, they are going to be aware of the game. And though I am glad that they are taking this more transparent approach than we have seen other games do ever, um, it's also a double-edged sword. And as much as I can sit here and test, I wouldn't be testing nonstop for a month straight, but I can test at my own schedule for a month straight, try to get some really good feedback to them, try to get some, try to find all the bugs and whatnot with what's currently there. The other side of it is that the community as a whole, and I'm talking about the gaming community as a whole, is going to look at that. And I think they're going to go, what the hell is this? Why are you guys spending money on this? This looks like shit. This doesn't, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, what's there is fine, but there's nothing really there. And so it's whether we like it or not, all of the visual stuff that comes out with this game does need to have some semblance of a polish to it.
Mhm.
And it's going to be hard, man. Like I really do hope that everything that I'm thinking is going to happen will happen, and that's that we are on pre-alpha servers right now, alpha 0 servers. Technically, that month-long test is the first test of, or I think if I remember the schedule correctly, but that's alpha 1. That is officially the step into alpha 1. Mm-hmm. So my assumption is that we will have a whole new server to play on.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's why, and I've said this before, and people have heard me say this 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. I think that them not having their official content creator program fully released yet is a mistake. I think that I understand why they're doing it. They want to make sure that people are enjoying the content and they're picking the right people to showcase the content. That being said, during this Alpha 1, like you said, the eyes of the gaming community are going to be on us. And when people are going to Twitch and to YouTube, they will probably be drawn to official content creators. And official content creators, I don't necessarily want to say, trained to be white knights, but they can be coached as to how to present this information in a way that's not, I'm going to stream it, I'm going to stream it, I'm going to stream it. Okay, that was it, guys. That game sucked. Sorry. And we're moving on. That you can explain to people what the vision is, where the game is going forward. Because even a lot of the content creators we have in the community now truly don't understand that.
Okay, so I have a question, a little counterpoint here. What if that's exactly what they're doing right now? They're not going to train us. They're just going to pick the people that already know how to do it.
I mean, for sure.
I think we're going to have a wave of official content creators being selected before the visual NDA gets dropped. And then I think more will get added as time goes on. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be everybody at once. Like, hey, you are all official content creators. I think they have their short list of people that they're sitting there going, okay, these people are it. And then the rest will funnel in as the visual is already gone.
And I talk. I just want to. I've said this before, but I talked to Toast about this before I even submitted my application. I literally waited. Like I think Toast had to run it up the totem pole because they were like, "Oh wait, I don't know if this is actually something we thought about." But I like as soon as the content creator program was released, I filled out my application, but did not submit it. And I reached out to Toast. It's like, "Hey, so." Am I going to be able to apply multiple times? Or is this like I apply and I get in? Because I've got I have been working on a lot of content, but I'm not ready to release it. I was kind of waiting for the visual NDA to drop out. I wasn't trying to just produce a bunch of content that wasn't meaningful. But I have all these videos and all this. So I'm debating right now whether I should wait and apply for the content creator program in a month or two once I've gotten a lot of this out, or if I should just go ahead now. And as I said, it took her a while to get back to me. So I think they were like figuring out what the official response was. But they said, yes, you are going to be able to apply multiple times. And I think part of that is like where we're getting the boot camp from. It's to see who's dedicated, to see who's going to learn their content, right? They're going to learn so yes, maybe you don't have the skills, or maybe I don't have the skills that is needed to get your content out there, right? To put things in a professional manner, to have the right assets, all this other stuff, and like kind of everything that goes into how to do thumbnails, how to title things, um, how to do tags, how to cross network and link your content to more of your content or link your content to another person you support. Like there's so many things that like, and this is all stuff like Thane and I have had, you know, I'm guessing we're at
Long
hundreds of hours of this conversation.
hundreds of hours of
Yeah.
discussions.
And we are taking this as a professional thing. We want this to be a business. And Super, I'm not leaving you out. I know you're a content creator too, but you're not
Oh
trying
yeah,
to be a
I'm
full
not going
time.
for
Yeah.
official.
Yeah, you're not going for official, you're not going for full time. But the idea behind who is dedicated, who talks, who can present issues in the right manner is very important, and they aren't just gonna like, so if they do reject you, they said they're gonna reject you and give you constructive criticism on how you can improve, and then you can come back. And this was before they announced the boot camp program. So it sounds like they're gonna reject you, give you constructive criticism, give you the option to opt into the boot camp where you can learn how to work on your the things they see as wrong, and I'm not saying they're right or wrong in that aspect, and then you can come back and come back in and try to be an official content creator.
I mean, yeah, I think it's a good program. Here's my worry with this boot camp situation is you are kind of working with your official content creators to make more official content creators, right? They've said that the boot camp, they will potentially pair you up with another content creator, and
Mhm.
that content creator is going to, your official CC will help maybe mentor two or three others. Well, not only is that an extra job for these content creators, and some will be better at it than others. Like, I guarantee you that if Bartik and I were in there and there were some people in the boot camp, we would take hours out of our day to help them and help them grow. But there will be official content creators in there that are like, yeah, you just need to do this, and then never give any assistance to these people. So there will definitely
Mhm.
be different levels of mentorship throughout that. I do like that you can reapply. I think that's really cool that you can reapply as you grow, as you can grow, and Intrepid can grow with you. Um, the question is, like, do you think official CC membership has a downside? I can't really think of one. I think that you have access to a lot more stuff. It definitely hurts in your overall ability to stream and create content around a variety of things. You are going to have to do a certain amount of ashes of creation stuff. Would you accept the program if your requirement was, if there was like hard requirements, like X amount of YouTube videos per week or X amount of hours streamed in Ashes of Creation per week?
I mean, I just don't see them ever doing that. I think content creation is to a certain degree an art form, right? I think there's no way like once again, this is going back to the thousand or the hundreds of hours we've talked about. It'll soon be thousands, I'm sure. There's
Yeah.
just no like everyone has their idea on how to grow as a content creator, how to be successful. Nobody has any idea. Literally nobody. It's just like, sometimes it just clicks. Sometimes you're at the right moment at the right time. Sometimes you're just that magnetic personality. It's so hard to tell. I just don't see them ever putting any official requirements on it. I think that I see them reanalyzing as things go on. Like, they're going to accept content creators right now based on the content they're currently doing. And then I'm guessing they're going to, like, there's going to be a point where they're going to reassess. They're going to reach out to a bunch of people and be like, hey, we're not seeing what we want to see from you. There's potential that we think we might have to drop you from the creator program. I'm hoping that'll be an open discussion, right? That they would facilitate, do it in the right way, and then give the person the option to be like, yeah, I'm not really into ashes anymore. Go ahead and drop me. Or, yes, I'm going to make a bunch more content. Or, yeah, I'll step it up or whatever it is. At the moment, there's literally no downside. Um, yeah. If you can get in right now, they haven't said anything about any requirements. I don't know if they're going to come to you with a contract. We have heard nothing about requirements. So at the moment, literally no downside.
I think that there's one in particular from the community aspect of stuff, and that's some people will view official content creators for whatever game as hashtag ad, hashtag paid,
Mm-hmm.
white knight.
Okay.
They're only going to say good things. Even though we know that's not what Steven is asking for. Steven has said, as he did in last week's stream, in that audio clip that we listened to, we don't want white knights. They can be just as detrimental to a game and a community as the overly toxic trolls.
Uh-huh.
So even though we know that, I think a perception that is out there is, like I said, hashtag ad, hashtag paid. And that is something I see as kind of a downside that, again, is coming. I'm repeating myself here, but again, it's coming from the community side.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what Ashes is offering the streamer, I don't see a downside. What the community views of that streamer, there may be a downside there, but I don't think it's big enough to say, hey, don't do it. I mean, for me, talking about kind of like the requirements and whatnot of it, the main reason why I'm not going for it is because where I'm at right now in real life and everything that's going on and how crazy everything's about to be over here, I don't feel like I would be able to put out the content that I would want to put out with me having the official content creator tag. So regardless of whether or not there's a spoken X number of videos, X number of content streamed, I think most good content creators will sit there and go, okay, I'm official. I'm wearing the Ashes uniform, whatever. I need to represent it in a good way, bring up criticism in a good way, and put out content related to the game. And if you can't put that out, like I said, even if they're not specifically saying, hey, X number of videos, X number of streams, I do think that there is a little bit of an unwritten, unspoken expectation that, yeah, you're putting content out. Like, it's content creator. Like, you need to be creating content.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? Because obviously Steven he said he wants people to present ideas in a good way. He wants he said it outright, right? That he wants official content creators to support the project, to support the program. I think that's a very acceptable thing in terms of requirements. And that's kind of where they're going, is instead of actual requirements for amount of content, it's about what content you're putting out. And I think that's a fair thing to say in terms of, you can still be critical. You can talk shit all you want about the game, as long as you're not overly emotional, as long as you're not toxic about it, as long as you're not just spewing out because you want to spew out of your mouth whatever you're talking about. As long as you are presenting the criticism, here is what I don't like about it. Here is the way I think they could fix it. And I think that's a fair requirement, in my opinion. And that's not white knighting. You're allowed to make negative content. Just don't put it as negative. This game's gonna like all the people we see on Reddit, on the forums, that literally are like, just like, this sucks, it's gonna fail. Okay, well, why? What do you think is wrong? Okay, well, what do you think could be a way that they're not gonna fail? What are they doing wrong that you, as a backseat game developer, would fix to make this game successful?
I mean, like we did tonight when we were talking about, hey, are all the servers going to go in the same direction? Here's a potential fix. And even though that, we need more information, we need to see how everything plays out. But I mean, I think even on this show, we present possible issues with the game. We're not just sitting here saying, hey, this game's going to be awesome, even though I really think it's going to be. Like, there are clear issues, server degradation, but it's coming at it from a side of, hey, these being transparent, these are the issues with the game. We think that based on the effort that we've seen from the development team, these things are going to be fixed. Here are some things they can implement to fix whatever issue we're talking about. And I think that kind of approach is really important when it comes to official CC. Because like you said, if you're just sitting here going, this game sucks. The Toldars are horrible. Like, okay, like I think I said it last week. Don't present an issue if you don't have a proposed solution. I don't even care if that solution is half-assed, but at least try.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, right? Like, have a proposed solution. And if you're gonna complain about something and there literally is no solution, because that is just unfortunately an issue with some video games. Like there's no solution that anyone has been able to come up with to fix certain problems with certain types of video games. And if you have no way to fix that, stop complaining about it, because it's an issue that is just rampant throughout the gaming industry. It's a part of the genre, and unfortunately, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. You're still gonna play the game. You still played all of those games with that issue. Obviously, we hope there's a fix. We hope to try and fix it, but if there's no fix, stop complaining about it. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's you have to, it's really about formatting that, and we talked about this last time, formatting that kind of positive. You have to understand these are still human beings, right? They're still human beings. You still got to give them that good feedback. And like you said, Bardik, there are things that just aren't good. If I want to do A, B is always going to be the result. There's no way around having B a result from A. If I want to do, 2 is going to be a result. It is what it is. And you have to be able to identify that. And I think that that's something to look for too in these, with these content creators and with even non-official content creators or people that are solution oriented. People always look for that in jobs and stuff. I want someone who's going to see a problem and be solution oriented. And if there's not a solution, see it coming down the road, let everybody know about it, and then other people can make their choice.